Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. All right, we'll bring the jury out.
Subject matter jurisdiction, Your Honor. Still have yet to be verified.
Your objections noted.
Was my ICF obtained by clerk of courts?
The one requesting the copies of various documents?
The one asking for the complaints.
Yes, my understanding is they're working on it.
Just wanted that clear for the record.
We came up with the speed of the vehicle, or average speed of the vehicle during that segment of 32 miles an hour.
32 miles an hour as an average speed from point A to point B as they're depicted on this diagram.
Correct.
Witness.
Can you maybe explain for us the purpose of using an exemplar vehicle in your analysis?
Well, when I worked with the detectives from the City of Waukesha PD, we wanted to find an exemplar vehicle just due to the type of case this was. They were able to easily locate one that was very convenient to use, matching the description, I believe the year, make, and model of the car that was in the actual parade.
You used a 2010 red Ford Escape?
Correct.
Okay. Do you happen to know the curb weight of that vehicle?
Yeah.
Overruled, you may answer.
This particular 4x2 vehicle was 3,368 pounds, curb weight.
Okay. Can you say definitively that at any point between point A and point B, the vehicle was traveling faster than 32 miles an hour?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled, you may answer.
Grounds.
It's an average. Is it possible the vehicle maintained a constant speed of 32? Yes. But it's more plausible that you have higher and lower speeds during that segment.
Cross.
Yes. This is kind of distraction still being on there. Any reason why the average speed wasn't depicted in the exhibit?
That's just a calculation that we do that's included in the report. I don't normally do that in the diagram.
So it would be fair to say that you created the diagram?
I did create the diagram, yes.
You said normally you don't put the speed calculation in the diagram. Would it be any reason for that?
It's in the report. It's not necessary to put it in the diagram.
Have you ever done that before?
Could you rephrase the question?
Have you ever not included the speed analysis in any crash reconstructions that you've done before this one?
Are you referring to the diagram, or are you referring to the report?
Referring to the diagrams.
No, I don't. I do not put speed calculation results in diagrams.
On any of them?
On any of them.
Did you create any diagram with the speed calculations present on it?
No, I don't. The diagram that I created is the one that was up on the screen.
And then from there you put the speed calculations just in the report?
Yeah, I normally just put them in the report, yes. I don't have any recollection of putting one in the diagram.
Would it be fair to say that it may be a little bit difficult to locate what you analyze for speed if it's not in the diagram?
No.
So if you wanted to know the calculation of the speed, you would have to read the report.
Correct.
Would it be fair to say that it might be easier to find if it was included in the diagram?
My diagram is included with my report, and that's all one unit, so it is in the report.
You made reference to something called Newton's Law. Can you explain a little bit further what that is?
Newton's laws of motion are what we use as a big step in our reconstruction field. A lot of formulas are derived from Newton's laws, including the formula that we use to calculate the vehicle's average speed. Sir Isaac Newton obviously invented the laws of motion. We all learned that in high school, and that's part of the process that came to the formula that I used to calculate the average speed.
I always thought of Newton as gravity, so that was a bit of new information. You made reference to part of the crash reconstruction was finding a similar vehicle. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And you were able to find a similar vehicle pretty easily, you would say?
That would have been the City of Waukesha Police Department which found the vehicle.
And you made reference to it being in the parade as well? Or part of the parade as well?
The exemplar vehicle?
Yes, the vehicle that was similar.
The exemplar vehicle was not in the parade.
I may have misinterpreted what you were saying. Do you recall if that part of your investigation and the creating of the graph and all that technology that goes with that, was that part of the same day, or were they done on at different times?
I'm sorry, are you referencing the diagram, the creation of the diagram?
Right.
No, that was not.
Because it seems like a lot of technology went into getting the diagram created and, different variations of that. And then also using a similar vehicle to, I guess, simulate would that be fair to say, simulate the incident?
We used the exemplar vehicle for our testing.
Was that done all the same day, or was it done?
Sorry, could you rephrase the question again? I'm not understanding what you're asking.
Was the creation of the diagram and the simulation of the vehicle done on the same day?
No, it was not. The testing was done on January 30th.
And what about the simulation from the similar vehicle?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase the question?
Do you recall what date the simulation was performed?
Are you asking when I completed my analysis?
Specifically the part of the similar vehicle being used.
That was January 30th. We did the testing out on Main Street in front of Curry Insurance.
So what part of the process was done at a later date?
The diagram, the calculations, the time distance analysis.
Do you recall the date of the second part of the investigation?
Are you referring to when I completed my reports?
Yes.
No, I don't know what day that was.
Was it sometime after the January 30th date?
Correct.
Would you say there was a delay in finishing it, or did something cause you to kind of... Let me rephrase that. Was there anything that may have delayed you finishing the investigation quickly?
Can you rephrase? What do you mean by quickly?
By it seems like there was two parts of it: getting the simulation done, and then the actual diagram and things of that. Any reason why that couldn't be done closer together?
Well, first of all, it's not a simulation, because a simulation is different than what we did. This was just some testing we did out at the scene. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, I respond to hundreds of crashes. It depends on what I'm working on at the time. Once our reports are completed, they need to be peer reviewed. All that process takes time. So there's nothing that delayed my report. If you want to use me going to another crash, that possibly could have delayed it, but no delays that would affect the outcome of the report or the accuracy of the report.
No, I wasn't going to that part of it. I was just kind of curious to what may have spaced out the dates. That's what I was really getting at.
We do a lot of reports every year, and obviously we're not just doing one report a year.
Did you perform an external examination of an individual identified as Leanna Owen?
Yes.
Can you just state for the record how many pages that autopsy protocol consists of?
Objection.
Do you have the autopsy protocol in your materials?
No.
These autopsy protocols were previously provided to the defense.
All right, we'll still make copies.
And I did provide Mr. Brooks a copy of both the autopsy protocol as well as the diagram that's going to show on the screen.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name, Your Honor, for the record.
I would ask the court to accept Exhibit 62 and 163 into evidence.
Objection.
What was the cause of her death?
Multiple blunt force traumatic injuries.
Specifically for the injuries that she sustained, can you describe the fatal injuries for the jury?
Objection. Leading witness.
Overruled. She may answer.
Leanna Owen had injuries to her head, spine, torso, and viscera, or her internal organs.
Does the documentation in Exhibit 164, is that a summary of your findings from the autopsy protocol for Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
I would ask the court to admit Exhibits 164 and 63 and publish 164.
Objection.
Obviously, 164 is on the screen. Has Exhibit 63, the copy, been provided to Mr. Brooks?
Correct. The autopsy protocol for Virginia Sorensen as well as the diagram contained in 164 have both been provided to Mr. Brooks.
Objection. I don't consent to that name, nor do I agree to it.
Did you perform an external and an internal examination of Ms. Sorensen?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled. She may answer.
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury which injuries were fatal injuries?
Virginia
Objection. Leading the
Sorensen.
witness.
Overruled.
Virginia Sorensen also had a high cervical spine injury with laceration of her brainstem. She also had lacerations to her heart, either of which would have been fatal.
And is that consistent with being struck by a moving SUV weighing approximately 3,300 pounds?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
Finally, Dr. Shield, did you perform an autopsy on Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
And I'm going to display what's been marked as State's Exhibit 165 on the screen in front of you. And for the record, the state did provide Mr. Brooks with a autopsy protocol for Jackson Sparks as well as a copy of Exhibit 165, which is the diagram. Ma'am?
Objection. I do not consent to that name, nor do I know that individual, for the record.
Please continue.
Thank you. Ma'am, does Exhibit 165, the diagram in front of you, accurately show the findings that you made during the autopsy of Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
Okay. I would ask the court to admit State's Exhibit 64 as well as State's Exhibit 165 into
Objection.
evidence and publish Exhibit 165.
Objection.
Overruled.
Is there any reason why it would take till the 27th to perform the autopsy?
Objection.
He was
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Overruled. You may answer.
Jackson was in the hospital. He became an organ donor, which often requires a couple of extra days.
Can you describe for the jury his injuries?
Jackson had bruising around both of his eyes. He had a large bruise to the left side of his forehead. He had undergone a craniectomy where the neurosurgeon removes a portion of the skull to relieve pressure on the brain from brain swelling. He also had a separation of his skull from his cervical spine.
What was his cause of death?
Complications of craniocerebral injuries due to blunt force trauma to head.
Would that be consistent with it being struck by a moving SUV weighing approximately 3,300 pounds.
Yes.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled, her answer may stand.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-exam.
1 second.
Mr. Brooks? Your cross, please. Do you have any questions for this witness?
Just 1 second. I apologize to the court for taking so long. Do you know why the decision was made to why the decision was made for Jackson to become an organ donor?
Objection is irrelevant.
Sustained.
Did you end up doing any more autopsies beside those 3?
As it relates to this case or some other case, sir?
As far as this case, those are the only 3 autopsies that you did.
Yes, Jackson Sparks, Virginia Sorensen, and Leanna Owens.
Were you called to attend to any other victims of the incident, or just the 3?
Jackson Sparks, Virginia Sorensen, and Leanna Owens.
You didn't attend to anyone else?
Objection has to be answered.
Grounds.
Overruled, she may answer.
No.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shield. You may step down.
Your
Say
Honor,
by call. Sorry?
Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I have a few moments?
We can take a short break. I'll excuse the jury. We all can take about a 10-minute break. All rise for the jury, please. All right, it's 2:13. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 2:23. Thank you.
We'll briefly touch on the subject matter jurisdiction again. For the
The
record.
court will not be addressing that. Please bring out the jury.
When did you perform the autopsy on Mr. Rand?
On November 23rd.
And were you aware that this was as a result of an incident that occurred in downtown Waukesha on November 21st, 2021?
Absolutely.
Overruled. Her answer may stand.
I'm going to give you a pointer. I think it's hard maybe for the jury. I'm having a hard time seeing some of the dots
Okay.
on the skeletal knife.
Objection. Relevancy it is.
Overruled.
Grounds for the overrule.
Relevant.
Did you see the suspect vehicle, or did you go to look at the suspect vehicle in this case?
Yes, I did.
Overruled. She may answer. Go ahead.
I did. She died of multiple blunt trauma, but each area of injury was quite severe in and of itself.
Would that be consistent with her being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Absolutely.
It's overruled.
Did you perform an autopsy on Jane Kulik?
I did. The chest injuries, the pelvic injuries, and the abdominal injuries, each were very serious and could have been fatal individually.
And is that consistent with Ms. Kulik being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Yes.
Did you determine the cause of death to be from Mr. Hospital?
Multiple blunt force trauma.
And the fatal injuries for Mr. Hospital, can you describe those for the jury?
Answer.
Overruled. She may answer.
An injury to the thoracic duct, which carries your lymph fluid, and as a result of that injury, he also had an accumulation of fluid in both chest cavities of the lymph fluid.
And would those fatal injuries and the injuries that you've described, would those be consistent with being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Objection.
Overruled. You may answer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Your primary field is in the medical field. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Any reason why you would be inspecting a car if that's not a medical professional thing?
The examination of anything that's related to injuries in the people that I later examine is relevant in my specialty of forensic pathology.
Examining the vehicle would be essential to your medical expertise. Is that fair to say?
Examining the vehicle is important to interpret the injuries. I'm not sure that, I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
If you were doing an injury assessment based on if the injury was caused by a different kind of instrument, would the same apply to having to view that?
Yes, if in cases of gunshot wounds, I ask to see the gun. In cases of stabbings or blunt trauma, I ask to see the weapons that they think were used so I can determine if they are consistent or not consistent.
In the case of a gunshot wound, as you brought up, it wouldn't be, it would, let me back up. Would you say it would be hard to assess the gun being that it wouldn't be the actual gun, but the bullets that caused the injury?
Well, actually, I don't examine the bullets, but I would examine the gun, especially, for example, if it's a contact wound. So if the muzzle of the gun touches the skin, then the muzzle could leave a mark. So then I could say the muzzle of the gun shown to me might match the mark.
And that, if it was something similar to that, the muzzle type thing, that would be, the mark would be from the heat. Would that be fair to say?
No, not actually. It's actually from the contact of the metal, so it's more of an abrasion than a burn.
So in a case like in a case like that, what would be the significance of the actual inspection of the gun?
I'm going to object to this question. I think it's a little bit afield of where we're at.
Grounds.
Overruled. She may answer. She brought it up as an example. I'll allow a little bit of leeway, but go ahead.
Could you repeat your question?
What would be the significance of inspecting the actual gun in terms of the injury?
Well, I may be able to say that the mark on the skin, for example, is consistent with the outline of the muzzle of that particular weapon, looking at the dimensions and shape.
So what if it was used from a distance? Then what would be the essential reason to inspect the gun?
Depending on the distance, sometimes the pattern of stippling Like, for example, if there's a flash suppression or something used, that can play a role. If it's very far away, then the actual characteristics of the weapon are more general. So it depends on, distance does play a role on what I would be evaluating.
Do you know if at the time you did the autopsies, if any of the victims you performed the autopsy on had any underlying illnesses at that time, any cancers or anything like that that may have been going on at the time that you did the autopsy?
Yes, I would make observations of any natural disease processes that I saw at the time of autopsy.
Did you observe any?
Yes.
Do you recall from who that was?
Well, Mr. Hospital, he was an older gentleman. He had some heart disease, as I recall, a pacemaker, some coronary artery disease. Ms. Kulik, as I recall, had a large fibroid. That's what I remember.
Can you explain to the jury what is a large thyroid? Is that the word you thyroid?
Fibroid.
I'm sorry.
Yes. It's
fibroid.
A benign uterine tumor.
Is that a form of cancer?
No.
The older gentleman had some fluid buildup in the chest. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to misquote you. Some type of fluid around the chest area.
Correct.
And from your recollection, that wasn't caused by the vehicle?
That was. He entered the hospital actually with no evidence of that fluid because of the blood loss. The fluid collected in the hospital.
It would be fair to say that came about once he was already at the hospital.
That's true.
And you said he had a pacemaker. Would that have any effect whatsoever on what might have been going on in his chest at the time?
No, and because he was in the hospital, the function of that pacemaker was well documented while he was being monitored.
Was it pretty active, still working properly at that time?
It was.
Even with the loss of blood, as you say, he had a loss of blood. Even then, was it still working pretty good?
Yes, the loss of blood had no effect on the electrical function of the pacemaker.
You made a brief observation about speed and velocity. Do you have any expertise in that area?
Only to the extent that I understand how injuries occur and in terms of the transfer of kinetic energy, because all injuries I see in the body have to do with that kind of transfer.
Would it be fair to say that everybody is different, though?
Everybody is different.
So with May, I guess I would phrase the question by saying something that may seriously injure someone else probably wouldn't seriously injure another person based on your expertise.
Generally, things of a serious nature don't become not serious. I would say that different people might have there are differences in people and how injuries how different events might injure them. But I wouldn't say that something that's serious in one individual would be minimal in another. Even though there might be a range, it's not going to be okay for one person, but maybe deadly for another. That is not typically how it is.
But it can vary.
It can vary.
Do you recall how many people you were called to attend to the night of the incident?
How many people I was called to attend to?
Yes.
There were 3 victims on the road. Those are the ones that I saw that night.
Did you see anyone else besides those 3?
I later saw Ms. Kulik, who came from the hospital. Those were the people I examined that evening.
So it was just the 3?
The 4.
Do you recall being notified possibly to testify in this matter?
Yes. I knew always that this case would end up in trial.
And how would you know exactly that the case would end up in trial? And I say that because many factors could play out along, many different things happen over time.
You're right. That was probably a misstatement on my part. I thought it might go to trial, given the nature of the case, but I did not know for sure.
That makes sense, definitely. Do you recall whom you were subpoenaed by?
The district attorney.
Would that be referring to one of the district attorneys here today?
Sue Opper.
Did Attorney Opper ever state that she was the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. You do not have to answer that question.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
You may ask your next question.
Were you ever made aware of the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance.
Sustained. You do not have to answer that. Please ask your next question.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor, before I continue.
Ask your next question.
Do you even know if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Ask your next question.
No reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Ask your next question.
Do you know of any claims filed in this matter by you or anyone else?
What are claims?
Any reports filed? Any filings made on your behalf or anyone you know?
I'm actually not sure I understand that.
I would object to it. It's vague.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Did you make any claim of being an injured party in this matter?
No.
Do you know of anybody that has?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Relevance. Speculation. Vague.
Have you had any opportunity to view a complaint in this matter?
Objection, vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form.
Have you ever seen a complaint in this matter?
Objection, vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form.
Have you ever at any time had any interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Vague. Relevance.
I would object to that sustain. You said vague and relevance, relevant to the
Sustained.
case.
Next question, sir.
It's relevant, Your Honor.
Your
Jury
objection
deserves
is
to
noted.
know.
It's overruled.
I respect that. Jury deserves to know, though.
Jury will disregard the last statement made by Mr. Brooks. It's not his time to testify. Comments made by the parties or attorneys are not evidence.
Have you ever seen the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Same as before.
So that would be relevancy and vagueness.
Ask your next question.
Was today your first time ever seeing those exhibits that were shown?
No.
You've seen those before, those videos?
Videos?
Yeah, the exhibits that were shown.
Diagrams?
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't know that's how you identified them.
Oh. Well, I drew them.
Oh, those exact ones?
Yes.
Oh, so okay. I wasn't aware of that. I apologize for that question. And so I'm assuming at some point you turned those over to the district attorney. Would that be fair to say?
Today.
Oh, today. Any reason why you didn't previously turn those over before, you actually were called to test, or before you knew that you would be testifying today?
I decided to prepare them for the purpose of testimony. They didn't exist before today.
That's interesting. So this was really like a 11th hour, bottom of the night thing for you to get them prepared and be ready to go today then. Would that be fair to say?
No, I wouldn't say that.
To your knowledge, what would be the reason why you weren't already asked to develop those diagrams? Meaning, why weren't you asked this months ago in advance?
I don't think that anybody thinks about what exhibits might be used in a trial until the trial approaches, would be my answer.
Had you ever created any diagrams like that before? The way that you did these, had you ever done this before this incident?
I've used diagrams in many, many trials. I just didn't have a diagram that displayed the body and the skeleton in this manner. You know, I had no pre-existing form, but I use diagrams all the time.
So for this particular case, you decided to go a little bit extra. Would that be fair to say? Grounds.
Sustained. As to the form of the question.
Would it be fair to say then that for this particular case, you decided that you would want a diagram that was a little bit more defined?
What I decided was we had 3 decedents, and I thought it would be easiest for the jury to understand the complexity of the injuries when talking about 3 people sequentially if I could compress the information. You know, it would be multiple pages, and I thought that would be very difficult when we're talking about 3 different people.
So had you thought of that before in any other cases that you've done before this one?
I don't remember testifying about 3 pedestrians in trial in one sitting ever before.
No. I wasn't asking if you've testified at a trial before. I was asking based on the explanation that you just gave about making it easier to read the diagrams. Had you ever thought of that before this particular case?
Yes. It's not unusual for me to create my own diagrams specific to a case.
What I meant by that question was the way that you designed these particular diagrams. Had you thought of doing it this way before this particular incident?
Objection is irrelevant.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Next question, please.
Ma'am, to follow up on these diagrams that have been presented in court today, are all the findings that are contained in those diagrams from the autopsy protocol?
Yes.
Objection.
Overruled.
Relevancy.
Overruled.
And ma'am, could you have brought in a it's Halloween, so we see them all over the place, but could you have brought in a skeleton and described the same injuries?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. 3
Objection.
correct.
Hearsay.
It's not hearsay. She may answer.
I could show you the broken bones on the skeleton.
And if you had in a doll or a mannequin, that would be something that you could show the jury, just like you did in these diagrams, where the injuries, the external injuries were. Would that be a correct statement?
Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
That's true.
So is there anything on these diagrams that were not contained within the autopsy protocol that were turned over to the state months ago?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
No, there's nothing on the diagrams that was not, that isn't listed in the autopsy reports.
If I put a blank diagram in front of you, could you have made these same markings right here and it would have just taken time, obviously, but could you have done it right now?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I could.
Thank you. Now, I want to talk briefly about Jane Kulik's autopsy. You had stated that you had discovered a benign uterine fibroid. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did that in any way, was that a factor in her death?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. She may answer.
No.
And with regard to Wilhelm Hospital, was the presence of a pacemaker in any way related to his death?
Objection, I asked that in my cross and she answered.
Overruled. It's redirect. It's proper. The state may ask it. You may answer.
No.
The coronary disease that you testified to on cross-examination, did that play a factor in his death?
Objection, same reason.
Overruled.
Already
You may
answered.
answer.
No.
The thoracic fluid found in Mr. Hospital's lungs that you said did play a factor in his death. Is that correct?
Yes.
What caused that fluid buildup around his lungs?
Objection, answered already.
Overruled. You may answer.
It was an injury to the thoracic duct that was caused by the impact of the vehicle to his body.
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Direct your attention to November 21st of last year. Were you at the City of Waukesha Christmas Parade?
Exactly. I was the Catholic community of Waukesha Catholic were walking in the parade.
Are you familiar with pretty much everyone within this picture?
Yep.
Can you briefly look at that and let me know if those names are correctly associated with the correct people?
Yeah, to the best of my ability.
I would ask the court to admit Exhibit 129 into evidence and publish it for the jury. Would ask
Objection
the
to
court to
relevancy.
publish.
The objection is overruled. Exhibit 129 is received and permission to publish is granted.
Can you briefly kind of go over the people who are named? How about Adair Lopez Revelar?
Objection, leading the witness.
Adair is
Hold on, there's been an objection. I need to rule on it. The objection's noted. It's overruled.
Was this taken on the day of the parade? Does it appear?
it would definitely appear. I'm not familiar with the picture, but it would defintive appear.
That appears to be the street that you guys
Exactly.
walked on
Yep,
and the clothing
definitely.
that he was
Objection,
wearing.
leading the witness.
Overruled.
There's a box with their name with a red arrow going from the person to the name. Are all of those correctly diagrammed?
One, I couldn't say definitively that that's him, and Jose Perales, I believe that's him, but I couldn't say definitively on that particular angle.
Okay. And with regard to Jason Peckloff, specifically, since we've identified the other people in this photograph through Exhibit 129, that is Jason Peckloff, and he's correctly named in this diagram?
Yeah, definitely.
Objection. Everybody was not positively identified.
I would note that the witness identified most with certainty, others without. So the jury should just keep that in mind at this point. I don't believe there's been an offer, though, or a request to receive it just yet. So I'll withhold any of that.
And Your Honor, I'm going to move Exhibit 121 into evidence, ask that it be published with the understanding that Father Witter indicated that Jose Perales Alvarez and Juan Marquez, it would be consistent, but he cannot say with 100% positivity that those are those two individuals.
Objection. It was not said with certainty whatsoever. The answer was he's not sure.
Exhibit 121 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
Other than Jose Perales Alvarez and Juan Marquez, which you indicated you weren't positive about, the other people whose names are and arrows are on that picture, you can positively identify them?
100%.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 122. And there are two names associated with two individuals on this picture. Can you positively identify that those individuals are the people in this picture?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
Yeah, William Mitchell and Yamilat Perales, that would be 100%.
Can you identify the individuals who are named in this exhibit?
Objection. The names are on there.
Question was whether he could identify the individuals who are named. So
That's a big arrow pointing to there.
your objections noted. It's overruled.
100%, I would attest to that picture.
I'd ask the court to admit Exhibit 123 into evidence and to publish it for the jury.
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
Are the arrows associated with the people that you know as Elliot Hallmark and Father Pat Heppy?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yep, 100%.
And again, this photograph is taken at the same location as the others?
Yep.
Okay. I'd ask the court to admit Exhibit 125 and allow it to be published for the jury.
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled.
What, at some point, was your attention drawn to something during the parade?
All of a sudden, kind of heard a scream, and my experience was I turned to my left, and there was a red SUV just flying down the road. My next experience would be kind of hearing it, kind of striking people.
And I'm gonna just, because we have to put that on the record, that you put your fist to your
Yeah,
palm of your
just,
hand, making a striking noise.
Yep, just kind of like a
Objection. Leading the
pounding
witness.
sound, I guess you'd call it.
Overruled. The description may stand. Keep going.
Thank you.
Next question.
How many times did you hear that?
So for
Objection.
me,
Leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
I heard 2 times. My next encounter was that there were 3 people from our group that I don't believe would have been the ones with impact that were lying more or less right in my immediate path.
I'm going to show you what's been marked and admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit 15. It'll not only be, I'd ask that it be published as well.
Go ahead. Exhibit received.
Objection. How many times do you need to publish the same picture?
Your objections noted. It's overruled.
Of course.
Where do you see your group on this map?
Furthest to my left.
Can you circle it? That star that you circled then is attached to a list of names. Is that correct?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Sustained. Please rephrase.
Yes. Do you see a list of names and an arrow on that map?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
I do.
Do you recognize the names that are on that map?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yep, I recognize all those names.
How many names are on that list?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled.
19?
Didn't mean to test you. And were all those people, to your knowledge, injured as a result of being struck by or indirectly struck by the vehicle in the parade?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Did you hear the impacts first, or did you see the red SUV first?
I saw the red SUV just flying on the left side. It was going faster than anyone in their right mind would be driving in that scenario.
Could you estimate the speed?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
The speed limit is 25. The car, in my estimation, was going faster than I would see a car driving in normal times down that street.
So in excess of 25 miles per hour?
Objection. Hearsay. Leading the witness.
Not hearsay. It's a clarification question. Your objection noted. It's overruled. You may answer.
I would say yes.
Could you describe who you saw after the car went through who appeared to be injured?
So the 3 people that were in my path were Father Patrick Heppy, and then Maria Perez, and Bill Mitchell.
So the 3 people you had direct contact with would have been Maria Perez, William Mitchell or Bill Mitchell, and Father Heppy.
That's correct.
Objection. Leading the witness.
I believe that's what his testimony just was.
Correct. It's overruled.
I'm just going to go through the remainder, and if you saw them or either that night or in the following days, let me know, and if you know that they were injured. Maria Alvarez Dominguez.
Objection. It's hearsay.
It's not hearsay. It's asking about his knowledge, not what he heard. So you may
injuries
answer
would be
the question.
Maria was injured. I don't know the full scope of her injuries.
And how about Gregorio Romelia Perez?
She was very, very, very severely injured. Major issues.
Could you observe what those injuries were?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Pelvis fractures, and she was in rehab for about 4 months with still walking with a cane.
Jason Peckloff.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Jason suffered a severe concussion and some ankle injuries, an ankle injury.
Yamilet Perales Alvarez.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. Go ahead. You may answer.
Yamilet was came very close to losing her. Major head trauma. Was severely hurt.
Jose Perales Alvarez.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Jose also was very severely hurt with leg injuries. He's had about 10 surgeries at this point. Still walking with a crutch.
And Camila Perez Gonzalez.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
Camilla had an orthopedic injury. He's had a couple surgeries.
Any cross-exam questions for this witness, sir?
I do.
Please proceed.
See. I don't have too many questions for you, Father. To the best of your knowledge, do you have any reason why you would be testifying on behalf of an injured party if you are not an injured party?
Mr.
Grounds.
Overruled. You may answer. If he knows.
My thought would be that as the pastor, I would have a more wide-ranging kind of knowledge of different people's situations as a pastor.
You testified to observing quite a few injuries. How can you assess the injuries just by looking at the people?
Can you clarify what you mean by that? Like, what are you getting at?
For example, if I was to see someone injured laying on the ground, I could essentially say, "Oh, it looks like this," but how can I be certain that that's what it is? So my question is, being that you observed a lot of injuries, how are you able to assess what they were just by looking?
Well, the question mischaracterizes his testimony, so I'm going to ask that you rephrase.
How did you know the injuries just by looking?
It still mischaracterizes his testimony. That's not what he said. He was asked about whether he was aware.
Yeah, that he observed injuries. So how could he know
He observed some, so you need to be specific as what point in
the
time.
injuries that you saw at the hospital? How were you able to say for sure what those injuries were just by observation?
Yeah, so some of it is seeing people at the hospital, and then part of it then is, so there's the immediate seeing people in the hospital, and then there's the later times of seeing people in the hospital or seeing people in other contexts.
So would it be fair to say that you were told those injuries either by medical professionals or by the people?
Exactly. So if people would say, "This is my injury," I would believe them. If they'd be in the hospital, if I see people with crutches, wheelchairs, then I would say that's probably accurate.
But you didn't know for sure yourself until you were told.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not the one diagnosing an injury. I can observe what they say, I can observe what I see, and then I see people with
That's-
crutches, wheelchairs.
That's
and
what I
I'm
was
like,
getting at.
there's probably truth there.
Do you know if any of the people you saw after the incident filed any claims in the matter?
Could you clarify by what you mean by claims?
Did they file for to be an injured party in the matter, or did they file for any medical bill support or anything of that nature? To your knowledge, do you recall any of that?
We certainly told as many people as possible to get involved in the Waukesha parade support and other means of help. I can't speak specifically for each person what they did or did not do.
Can you explain to the jury what you mean by the support that you are referring to? Was that like a group formed, or was that sort of like an event of a GoFundMe account or something like that? Can you give some clarity on that?
Yeah, there was the Waukesha parade fund that was, I think, an international type of thing. There was, our parish had a fund. There were GoFundMes. There were any number of different things. There were different encounters to allow people to come together and talk about what had happened and seek start of healing from the emotional part of it.
And by international, that would be assuming worldwide. That'd be fair to say?
Yes.
So it would be fair to say that there were financial interests attached to this incident.
Objection is how it relates to this witness's testimony.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Well, it was actually because he referred to some GoFundMes being set up and anything. So my question was, being that it was a wide-ranging scope by him saying international.
What's your question? I sustained the objection.
Was there any financial interests attached to this incident?
And I'm going to object for the same reasons before.
Grounds.
It's vague, unclear, overly broad.
Any idea how much money was raised for the I guess I would say GoFundMe's, groups, support?
Objection as it relates to this witness's
Grounds.
testimony.
I'll allow it a little bit of leeway as it potentially could relate to bias, not of this witness. He made no claim, but go ahead if he knows.
There was $73,000 that came into the fund that I'm aware of, the Catholic community of Waukesha, that we dispersed in different ways. There's still, I think, $3,000 left. That's for kind of community healing events. What the end of what GoFundMe's reached, what the Waukesha Foundation Fund reached, I don't know.
And did that go straight towards the victims to help them in any way?
So an example would be, there are many people that could not work because of being hurt, or they had situations where a loved one was severely hurt and they had to be at home or going to the hospitals, nursing homes, and taking care of them.
You stated you didn't see the vehicle approaching at the time when it got to where you were. Would that be fair to say?
That's correct. It was very close to me when I saw it.
About how close to you did the vehicle come?
The vehicle was on my left side. I saw it probably, very close to when it was on me, I would say, to my left.
Did it come pretty close to you at any time when it was passing you?
The car did not hit me. It was on my left.
You referred to it as a car, as you just said. Was it a car? Was it an SUV? What was the vehicle?
I would describe it as an SUV, to be specific.
Any reason why you would say car?
Objection argumented.
Grounds?
Overruled. He may answer.
For me, people that know me, I'm not a car person, so car is a wide-ranging descriptor to me.
Would it be fair to say you wouldn't call a bus a car, though, right?
Objection argumented to that.
Grounds.
That's argumentative, sustained. You don't need to answer that one.
At any time when the vehicle was passing you, were you able to see into the vehicle?
The vehicle was going very fast, so I would not have had a picture of who was driving the vehicle.
But you can't estimate a good speed that the vehicle may have been traveling.
My estimation was the vehicle was traveling faster than I would usually see a car traveling down Main Street. So over 25 miles an hour.
So would that be that you said traveling faster than you would see a car traveling down Main Street? Would that be in terms of if there was a parade actively going on, or even without any traffic on Main Street?
If I was at Main Street right now watching cars go past, if I was just on the sidewalk, I would say that the parade was traveling faster than those cars would be traveling.
I'm saying in terms of even if there was no parade, if it was just a normal day.
That's what I'm saying. On a normal day, the car was traveling, in my estimation, faster than you would see a car traveling on a normal day.
Do you recall being interviewed by any law enforcement at that time?
I was not interviewed until getting a subpoena about this particular case.
Do you recall when you received that subpoena?
October 1st was when I got the official, to report, to testify to the case.
Were you in contact with any law enforcement about this incident leading up to the October 1st subpoena that you received?
Not before I talked to the DA.
And do you recall what DA that was?
It was Susan and...
Excuse me.
Susan.
May the record reflect that there was a right-hand gesture towards the prosecution table?
I believe the witness identified our District Attorney Susan Opper as the Susan. The record can reflect that.
And was that October 1st time the only conversation you had with Attorney Opper?
It would have been sometime in September where I was, notified to come in and talk to the DA. So I talked to the DA once.
And at that time in September, you weren't yet subpoenaed?
I was, how do I say this? This would be a point of clarification in the sense of I believe that I was subpoenaed to come in and talk to the DA. I'm not sure if that's a subpoena or that's what the correct wording is. I was told to come in and talk to the district. I'm not sure if that's a subpoena, but I believe it would be more than come in if you want to. I believe it was kind of like you need to come in, not if you want, you can, if not, don't. I'm not sure what the terminology for that is, but that's how I would take it. If that's a subpoena.
No, that's not a subpoena. The subpoena is when you actually get the subpoena paperwork by mail, or I don't.
Mr. Brooks, you need to ask a question.
Can I get to it, Your Honor?
No, because you're trying to define something, which would be testifying, which you cannot do at this time. So the jury will disregard his last comment, but go ahead and ask a question of this witness.
You get something else. Wow.
Mr. Brooks, that was inappropriate. Do you have any other questions
Yes,
for this
I do.
witness?
Yes,
Please
I
ask
do.
them.
During your conversations with Attorney Opper, in September and October 1st when you received the subpoena. At that time, were you provided the complaint in this issue?
What do you mean by complaint?
The complaint would be a reference to the charges in this matter. Paperwork that would state the charges.
Objection, Meg.
Grounds.
Oh, overruled. He may answer if he's able.
I mean, to me, seeing what happened and seeing everyone that was hurt,
No.
to me it was very obvious what this was about.
Did you see at any time any paperwork related to the charges in this incident?
So there'd been the subpoena sheet that would have had your name and any number of different.
What do you mean my name? What are you referring to?
I believe it would have said Darrell Brooks on it.
Are you aware that I don't identify by that name?
Objection, argument.
Sustained.
Sorry.
So is that what your subpoena said? Was that the language of your subpoena? The logistics?
We've been down this road under 906.11, Mr. Brooks. You're not, I need you to ask a relevant question to this witness.
That was relevant. He said what was on his
No,
subpoena.
you've talked at length about the subpoena. So under 906.11, move on to a new topic, please.
Are you aware of who the plaintiff is in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Overruled. He may answer.
I believe that you would be, or excuse me, you're the defendant.
I would be the plaintiff?
Excuse me, at my mind, you're the defendant, I believe. The plaintiff would be.
If you know, do you know who the plaintiff is?
All those who were hurt under the title of the state of Wisconsin. That's how I would identify it.
That's how you would identify it. So do you know if anybody who was hurt that identified as the plaintiff?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
I think this witness has testified he's really not sure what the plaintiff is. He kind of guessed. He gave an assumption.
Sustained.
He did.
Foundation.
He did answer the question though.
Sustained. Next question.
So to the best of your knowledge, the plaintiff would be the representative of the people.
Objection is relevance.
Sustained. You're now asking him to make a legal conclusion, which I will not have him do. It's also not relevant.
Do you know if any injured party who claims to be the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained. Mr. Brooks, under 906.11, please move on to a new topic.
Are you aware that only an injured party could be the plaintiff in this incident?
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance.
Sustained also misstates the law. You don't have to answer that. Mr. Brooks, new topic, or under 906.11, I will close the cross-examination.
How does that mischaracterize the law? An injured party has to make the claim.
Under 906.11, you haven't asked a question. I will give you one more opportunity. Don't question me. Please ask a question of this witness. The jury will disregard his statement as it mischaracterizes the law, and he is not testifying. He's asking questions at this time.
Are you aware that the state of Wisconsin is an entity and cannot claim to be an injured party in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained. All right. Your cross-exam is now closed under 906.11. Does the state have any redirect for this witness?
Briefly.
Go ahead.
Sir, prior to the red SUV coming through your group, did you ever hear a horn honking?
Objection.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Objection. Hearsay.
It's not hearsay.
I personally
Hearsay.
didn't, but
That's fine. Now I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 15 again and ask that that be published to the jury. This has already been admitted into evidence.
Go ahead.
Objection. What was the answer to the last question?
The record speaks for itself. Next, the witness can consider the annotations.
In looking at that box again, were all those people on the road as part of the Catholic communities of Waukesha when the red SUV went through?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
definitely, 100%.
When you spoke with District Attorney Susan Opper in your meeting that you testified to, did she ever tell you what to say today?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You questioned his credibility. You questioned his talking to the state. He may answer the question.
The only
Go
reason
ahead.
why I'm objecting, Your Honor, is because
Your objection's noted.
Attorney
It's,
Opper is not asking the question, so how would Attorney Basie know what
Mr.
Attorney Opper
Brooks,
said?
I'm not going to explain the legal procedures. You go ahead, ask the question. You may answer when she does. Do you recall the question?
Yeah, I do. She did not.
Okay.
No.
Did she tell you to tell the truth today?
Objection. Relevancy.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Everything that you testified today, is it truthful?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Nothing further, thank you.
All right, thank you. You may step down. I would like to get through one more witness, but I want to take a short comfort break for everyone, so I'll rise for the jury. Thank you. Mr. Brooks, not now.
Not allowed to.
Not now. The jury is in this courtroom, and you will show respect for them and for this court.
Respect for them would be
Mr. Brooks,
telling them the truth.
stop. I'm putting you on notice that you are on the verge of this court creating a curative instruction about your frivolous arguments. I will not have you claim legitimacy for what are debunked, frivolous, sovereign arguments.
Then
That is why
prove it.
your questions
Prove it.
are being
Prove that it's
objected
frivolous.
to,
Prove
and
that
why
it's frivolous. Prove it.
all the cases that we've already referenced, sir. We are in recess. We'll be back in
prove
5
it.
minutes. Thank you, everyone.
I don't agree to a estoppel. Can you prove?
Let me say this, Judge. The ebb and flow of this trial has been very difficult to predict, not through any fault of the court, but by events. We do have two witnesses here ready to go. If the next witness goes relatively smoothly, would you consider letting us call the second one and maybe wrapping up by about 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If not, he can come back tomorrow, but he's been here twice already.
No, we'll keep going. I prepped the jury for that yesterday, so we're good. I'm going to have the jury brought out. All right. Bring the jury in, Madam Clerk.
And I object to that.
To the timing?
Yes.
Your objection's noted. We're going to make up for lost time from yesterday.
So can we adjust the subject matter jurisdiction?
No,
then,
we
since
cannot.
we already talked about that? We're not going to address that either. That's still not going to be proven, right? It is frivolous stuff. That's going to get pressed every time. So. Not yet to prove subject matter jurisdiction. Any jurisdiction at all, right?
The jury will disregard the comments being made by Mr. Brooks at this time. They are a mischaracterization of the law.
Absolutely not. They are absolutely not.
All right, thank you, everyone. Please be seated. The state may call its next witness.
Sir, how are you employed?
City of Waukesha Police Department.
What's your position?
I'm a detective.
Direct your attention to November 21st of 2021. Were you at the City of Waukesha Christmas Parade?
I was.
Were you there in as a law enforcement officer, a spectator, or participant?
I was there as a participant.
And what group were you with?
I was with the Catholic Communities of Waukesha.
Were you with your family?
I was.
Was your wife present?
My wife and my 4 kids at the time, yes.
There are boxes with names that are associated with people through a red arrow. Do you see that?
Yes.
Overruled.
Sir, do you know the people whose names appear on Exhibit 121?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Do you see arrows on that exhibit?
Yes.
And they're going from a person to a name. Do you see that?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
Yes.
At some point, did you hear some type of commotion behind you?
I did. My attention was directed towards large amounts of screaming coming from behind us. I could see like a roof of a red vehicle.
What were your initial thoughts?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
My initial thought that came into my mind at that time when the screaming occurred was that there was probably a lost motorist and there was a vehicle traveling in the parade that shouldn't have been there.
Have you ever worked a Christmas parade in Waukesha?
I have.
Relevancy.
Overruled.
Are there some times when there are barricades set up and a vehicle will come into the area that they're not supposed to come in?
That does occur, yes.
What would law enforcement do in that case?
Usually stop the vehicle and direct them to either stop or remove them when it's safe to do so.
Have you ever been present where the vehicle doesn't stop?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
No.
When you said that you heard screaming, can you describe for the jury what you mean? Because we're at a parade, so I'm assuming that there's some screaming.
Objection, leading the witness.
Sustains to the form of the question.
Can you describe for the jury if the screaming stood out to you?
Yes,
Objection,
it was.
leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, at that point, this had caused some sort of commotion that was not particularly used to that we've already incurred through the entire parade.
And did you notice anything different about your surroundings as you heard the screaming?
Objection. I asked the form of that question and it was answered.
Overruled. He may answer.
Can you just repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you notice anything other than the screaming that seemed unusual when that happened?
Objection, different question.
Overruled. I'm not sure what the objection is, but you may answer.
Clear with the objection.
I realized that something was drastically wrong based on the fact that that vehicle was traveling at a significant rate of speed towards our direction.
When you first saw the vehicle or the top of the red vehicle, approximately how far was it away from you?
I would say approximately 200 feet.
And which shoulder did you look back over when you heard the screaming?
I turned to my left.
And that's when the vehicle was approximately 200 feet away?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
What did you see next?
I had my 3-year-old in my left hand and I had my 9-year-old in my right hand. My 7-year-old was kind of walking in front of us at the time, and I remember realizing that we were going to get hit and it was going to come very quickly. And so I grabbed my 3-year-old as hard as I could and I threw him towards the curb. At the same time, I tried to grab Benjamin at that point and throw him with my 3-year-old.
Oh, Benjamin, is he the 7-year-old?
Yes.
And he was in front of you to testify?
Objection,
Correct.
leading the witness.
This way.
Overruled.
And you stated that you had your 9-year-old in your on your right side. What's the name of your 9-year-old?
Elliot.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. I'm sorry, what was the name?
Elliot.
Thank
Elliot
you.
Hallmark.
When you saw the vehicle and as it was coming towards you, could you estimate the speed that the vehicle was traveling?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
I estimated the vehicle traveling about 30 to 40 miles an hour.
So you threw your 3-year-old to your left, you stated?
Towards the curb, which would have been to the south.
And how about Elliot?
I don't know if he got ripped out of my arms when the vehicle came through. I just remember that I kind of got, as I turned to my left, I pivoted on my left foot. I got clipped to my left foot, and the vehicle passed us, but I don't recall what happened with Elliot.
How about Ben?
Ben, I saw him stumble and kind of roll from where the vehicle came towards the curb to the south.
Now, when you said you got clipped, what clipped you?
Objection.
Overruled.
It had to have been the vehicle. I had an abrasion on my left heel, and then I had white sneakers on that night, and they had black marks along where I had my abrasion on that same part.
If you're traveling down the parade route, was it on your left or on your right?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
When I saw the vehicle coming, I kind of moved to the left and threw my kids to the left. So we were kind of left of the center line, but the vehicle had passed me on my right.
Did you say that you observed anyone get hit that was behind you?
I don't
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
I don't recall seeing anyone specifically getting hit. I do remember hearing sounds of the vehicle striking objects, and the only objects in the road were people at the time.
What happened next, or what do you remember next?
I remember turning to my wife. She looked back at me and said that she didn't know where our son Elliot was. It was some time after, I would estimate it to be a minute to 2 minutes after the vehicle had passed, but I had located him on the road further to the south, almost immediately towards the curb was, being tended to by some individuals that had covered him up with a blanket.
While you're looking for Elliot, did you see anyone else on the ground?
I did.
Can you describe for the jury what you observed?
There was a lot of individuals laying on the road as you look back, and I remember specifically seeing Father Pat Happy laying on the ground. I remember he was, at that point when I had saw him, I thought he was deceased because he wasn't moving at all. So I would assume that he was knocked unconscious. I continued past, and then I remember specifically seeing a younger female who I recall to be as Yamilet Perales laying in the roadway. And two, I thought she was also deceased because there was blood coming from like her ears, and she wasn't moving either.
Once you found Elliot, what observations did you make of him?
The person who was tending to him indicated that he was knocked unconscious. So when I had found him, he actually regained consciousness, but he was crying and complaining of injuries to his back and to his hip and to his leg.
Were there any observable injuries to Benjamin at the time immediately following the car going through the group?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
I knew that he had been injured because when I had looked over to where he was over on the curb, I had seen that he had some facial injuries, swollen eyes, and lacerations. After the paramedics had put Elliot on a removable stretcher, I went over to him to pick him up. I had looked down and I had realized that he had an open fracture to his left leg.
Where did you go?
We went to Waukesha Memorial Hospital.
And what happened once you were at Waukesha Memorial Hospital? What did you see in general?
Yeah, I mean, I was working in the city. We go to Waukesha Memorial Hospital quite a bit, and I have never seen anything like this in my entire life. It was pretty much chaos. When we first got to the hospital, there was some sort of physician or EMT that was actually triaging individuals with, I believe it was permanent marker, and they were triaging individuals on their forehead of what level of injury they needed. And based on that, this kind of directed work they had gone inside the hospital.
Now you stated initially when the car was coming towards the back of your group, you thought it may have been someone that just accidentally got on the Christmas parade route, correct?
Objection, that was not the form of a question, or answer rather.
Asked and answered, sustained.
So after having your initial thought, did your thought change at some point that this isn't a misguided vehicle?
Yes.
And what did it change to?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
My thought then that we were involved in some sort of terrorist act.
I'm going to show you on the screen in front of you, Exhibit 140. I'm going to play the first 5 seconds and see if you recognize this video.
Yes.
We can stop it and go back to 00. Does it accurately reflect what you observed on November 21st, 2021?
Yes.
Objection to the relevancy. Who took the video?
Overruled.
Does this video contain footage of the Waukesha Catholic community in the parade on that date?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
I would move State's Exhibit 140 into evidence and ask that it be published to the jury with sound.
Objection. Still hearsay.
The objection's noted. It's overruled. Exhibit 140 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
Saturday, November 2020.
Did you see a red SUV traveling westbound in that video?
Yes.
Would that be consistent with what you saw coming from behind you on November 21st prior to what you just described?
Objection. How do we know the direction? How do we know it's westbound?
Your objection's noted. It's overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to show you some still shots from that video and just ask if they accurately reflect what you observed.
Objection to the relevancy.
I have to see them.
What does this photo reflect to you? Sorry.
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
This photo represents individuals from our group in the parade walking.
And are there names on this diagram?
Yes.
And do they appear to be associated with people within this group?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
How is that depicted?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
The names are depicted by red arrows pointing to the individuals.
And do they accurately reflect the names of the individuals that they're pointing, that the arrows are connected to?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask that Exhibit 135 be admitted and published to the jury.
Objection to the relevancy.
Overruled.
You can just circle Jose Perales Alvarez.
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
If you can describe for the jury what you're seeing in Exhibit 136.
Something very similar to the last exhibit.
I'm sorry. Is there an objection?
Leading the witness.
That's not leading. It's overruled.
Do you see yourself in this photograph?
I do.
Okay. I would ask that this 136 be admitted and published to the jury.
Objection. Why? Where's his name if he's in the video?
That's not an objection. That's a question. You can certainly ask that during cross-examination.
Can you circle where you're at?
Objection. Why there's no name on it? What's the
Overruled.
relevancy of it?
Overruled. You may answer the question.
That's right.
Approximately what location are these taken in relationship to where your group was physically impacted by the car?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
This was probably about a block prior to us being struck.
Would this be consistent with what you believe generally the formation would have been when your group was impacted?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you 137. Does this appear to be a still shot from the video that you saw in Exhibit 140?
Yes.
I'd ask that Exhibit 137 be admitted into evidence and published.
Objection. Where's the relevancy?
Overruled.
Do you see the name David Marquez on the screen?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
Yes.
Can you circle him? Is there any type of delineation as to exactly where the parade route where it started and where it went to?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
The parade started up towards Maine and White Rock and ends towards Maine and Wisconsin.
Do you see a purple line on that exhibit?
Yes.
What does that reflect?
Objection,
Overruled.
leading the witness.
The parade route.
Hold on, I'm sorry, what was your
Leading the
objection?
witness.
Leading, did you say? Overruled. You may answer.
It indicates the parade route.
Sir, direct your attention to the area where the Catholic communities of Waukesha, where there's a list of names. Do you see that?
Yes.
And are all those people that are listed in that box, were they in the roadway at the time that the red SUV went through your group?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
There's a line with that box that's associated with this a yellow star. What's the significance of that if you know?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
That would be the general area where we were when we were struck.
Now I'm going to go to Exhibit 160. I'm going to show you approximately 20 seconds of the clip and see if you recognize it. Do you recognize that clip?
Yes.
Does that accurately depict what occurred near your group, the Catholic community, on November 21st of last year?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd ask that Exhibit 160 is admitted and published for the jury.
Objection.
Exhibit 160 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
If we can play this clip from 0 to 50 seconds, which is the length of the clip. The 4 people that you saw sliding through the screen from left to right, did you recognize those people?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 126, which is a still shot from that video. If you can, it'll pop up on your screen. If you can tell me if it accurately represents that video, that still shot from a video. That video.
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
Can you identify each of the people that are shown in this still shot by saying their name and circling their position?
Yeah.
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
So this is Jason Petchloff on his back in the roadway towards the south side of the road. This is Marisol Lopez, kind of in the middle of the roadway, and then Gregoria Perez.
One last video. Sorry, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 154. I'm going to play the first 5 seconds for you and ask you if it depicts what you observed on November 21st of last year.
Objection, what's the relevancy?
Overruled.
Yeah, this is a video taken right after the vehicle had come through our group.
Are you able to identify many of the people in this video clip?
Objection, hearsay. There's
Overruled.
a lot of people in here.
It's not hearsay.
Sir, I'm going to take you through this video and I'm going to pause it at certain places and ask you if you recognize anyone that's in the picture and describe their position. If we can start the video. And stop. Do you recognize the person depicted at 13 seconds?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. Screen, I'm sorry.
Laying on the ground right here in the blue, that's Lori Locken. So this is my daughter right here, and then right behind her in underneath that blanket, that's where Benjamin is. He's being attended to by some of the individuals there.
Okay. If you can just say stop if you see Elliot.
He's being attended to. He's right with this group of people right there.
And you recognize that to be the position you went to when you found him?
Objection, hearsay. We can't see who that is.
It's not hearsay. Overruled.
Yes.
If we can continue on. And if you see someone from your group on the ground, if you can say pause.
Okay.
We can pause here. Do you recognize that person?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yeah, there's 2 people. Marisol Lopez is right there, and then Idir Lopez is right here.
I'm sorry, is that still Marisol?
Objection.
We can pause here.
Pause. Who is that, if you know?
So this is still Marisol.
Said objection.
Overruled.
So this last yellow line I just drew, that's still Marisol.
Do you recognize this person?
Yes, that's Eileen Perales.
And is that how she appeared on November 21st of last year?
Yes.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
And is this a picture taken from a video from the parade?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
I'd ask that the court admit Exhibit 162 into evidence and publish it to the jury.
Objection, hearsay, and relevancy.
The objections are overruled.
Eileen Perales is wearing kind of like a black coat, some sort of pink leggings, and then she's wearing some sort of like maroon colored hat with white on it, like white stripes.
Okay. If we can save this screen capture, and this would be 162A.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
And then I'd ask to publish Exhibit 92, which has previously been admitted into evidence. I'm not going to ask you if it's the exact same hat that was on Eileen's head in Exhibit 162, but is the same type of hat in terms of has the same wording on it, same color, same palm color as the hat that Eileen was wearing in Exhibit 162.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
It looks remarkably close, same color, same patterns of the lines, the writing, and then with the top on it. Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing else.
All right, you're crossed, sir.
So you saw all those videos that were shown, all exhibits rather, all 12, 13 of them. You saw all those before today?
I don't recall there was 12 videos. To best of my knowledge.
126, 15, 137, 136, 135, 140, 128, 160, 154, 162, 92, at least 11 or 12.
Mr. Brooks, I'm going to strike your comment because you cannot testify. You did not let him answer. Let him answer first, and then you can ask follow-up. The jury will disregard the statement made by Mr. Brooks. Go ahead.
I believe there was only 3 or 4 videos, but there was numerous screenshots or photos taken from those videos.
That's why I said exhibits. Have you seen all exhibits before today?
I had seen those exhibits, yes.
And do you know who took any of those exhibits, the videos or still shots?
No, sir.
So how were you able to see them?
Can you rephrase the question, please?
How were you able to see them if you don't know who took them?
I saw them on the screen. I'm not sure I'm following your question.
Before today, you said you saw them before today. That's what you just said. So I'm asking, I asked after that, do you know who took them? You said no. So how were you able to see them before today?
I believe they were collected by the police department as evidence.
And that's how you saw them?
That's how we were able to view them afterwards, yes.
Did you view all 12 of them in their entirety at the same time, or were they at different dates?
Yes, back to the form of the question.
Grounds.
Did you view them all in their entirety? Again, it makes it seem like he's referring to videos, and if he is, that's fine. If he could just clarify videos or exhibits.
Sustained as to the form of the question, please rephrase.
Exhibits.
I just reviewed the exhibits, the photos, not the videos, but the photos, as you're explaining in these exhibits, prior, just in preparation of my testimony.
In preparation of your testimony, what do you mean by in preparation of?
Preparing my testimony for court, making sure that everything that maybe kind of recall my memory, anything to that nature, making sure that everything is accurate in what I'm going to testify to.
If everything you're going to testify to is truthful, why would you need to prepare for it?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained, just to the form of the question.
Why would you need testimony preparation?
This is a pretty significant incident. I wanted to make sure that I was prepared fully for being here and testifying.
Wouldn't it be easy to just come in and recount what you saw?
Objection. Argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Why exactly did you feel the need that you had to prep yourself?
Objection. Argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained, also asked and answered.
I'm going to direct your attention to Exhibit 154, which is a video. So that's clear for the record, not a still frame. It's a video.
You want to put up for him?
I want it put up for him.
All right, it's been received before. Put it up, please.
Can we go to 41 seconds?
Sure. Thank you to the state for assisting. 41 seconds, you said?
41 seconds. Is it fair to
Hold
say
on,
that...
do you want to wait until the jury has it in front of
Yeah,
them?
yeah.
Okay.
In this exhibit, which is a video that's paused at 41 seconds, we can see two people laying on the ground. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Can you see any of the two people's faces right now as it's paused?
No.
So it would be fair to say that you can't positively say who that is from this part of the video that's paused right now.
Well, based on my experience, based on clothing descriptions, obviously Idira and Marisol are mother and child, and body structures, that's how I'm able to identify who they are.
What do you mean by body structure?
Well, Idira is a little bit smaller, and Marisol's a little bit larger, and that's how I have memory of who she is.
Can you see faces?
No, sir.
So it would be fair to say that you don't know for sure who that is.
I'm pretty confident that's Marisol and Idira.
Pretty confident?
I'm very confident.
So why not be very confident the first time the question was asked? Grounds. Grounds.
Sustained.
Let's go to 58 seconds and pause. Can you see the face of the person laying on the ground under the pink blanket?
No, sir.
Would it be fair to say that you don't know for sure who that is?
As I described before, I'm very confident that that's Marisol that's laying on the ground.
And how can you tell that from the picture that we're looking at now?
Well, not specifically just from this picture, but like I stated before, as the video was moving, we could see clothing descriptions, body structure, who she's laying next to.
Is it fair to say that the exhibit is not moving right now? It's paused.
Yes, sir.
And it's paused with not being able to see who's under the pink blanket. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
So how can you say for sure who that is?
If I was to just view this video or this photo without any other context, you're probably correct. I probably wouldn't be able to identify any particular person, but because of the video and how it moved and how I was able to see people, I was able to confirm that that'd be Marisol.
And you came to that conclusion because you've seen these videos before today, or these exhibits rather before today. Would that be fair to say?
No, I come to the conclusion with my memory of being there at that night.
But you did state, just so we have clarity, that you in fact saw these exhibits before today. Would that be fair to say?
Objection asked and answered.
Grounds. Can you tell who that is just looking at it right now?
I know that that's Gregoria, yes.
Can you tell who it is looking at it right now? Can you see their face? Can you identify them right now?
I cannot see their face.
So it'd be fair to say that you're not sure who that is.
I am sure who that is.
And you come to that conclusion based on what we're looking at right now at this moment.
Objection.
Grounds.
Characterizes this witness's testimony.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Let's go to 136. Same exhibit and pause. The person that's laying on the ground, can you see their face?
No, sir.
So would it be fair to say that you don't know for sure who that is?
I'm sure I know who that is.
Based on what we're looking at now, you can tell who that is.
Based on my recollection of the incident that night, I know who that is.
Based on what we're looking at right now on the screen, can you tell who that is? You
Yes,
can
sir.
see their face.
I know who that is. I cannot see their face.
So it'd be fair to say from this picture, you're not sure who that is.
Objection. This characterizes
Grounds.
this witness's testimony.
Sustained.
To the right of the screen, right here. Can't tell how many people is kneeled down right there, but it's obvious that they're attending to somebody. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Can you see who that is that they're attending to in any way?
Not from this vantage point, no.
So it would be fair to say that you don't know who that is that they're attending to, correct?
I know who they're attending to.
And you can tell that by what we're looking at right now?
Objection.
Grounds.
Characterizes the testimony.
Grounds.
Witness testified as this video was going through who he believed each person was.
Who he believed. But we're looking right now. Can you tell who that is that they're attending to?
You cannot see that that is Jason Petchoff behind them, but that is who is laying on the ground right there.
And you can tell that by what we're looking at right now. You can see who that is.
No, based on my recollection of the incident, is why I know who that is.
I'm saying referring to what we're looking at, not your recollection. What we're currently looking at right now. Can you tell who that is that's being attended to from based on what we're looking at right at this moment?
You cannot see who the individual is.
Can we go to 2 minutes and 30 seconds and pause? Can we erase that circle and arrow?
It's been done.
Right in front of us, we can see is a group of people standing over someone who appears to be laying on the ground. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
It looks like they have a Scooby-Doo blanket over them. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
By what we're looking at right now at this moment, can you tell who's under the Scooby-Doo blanket?
I know who that is.
Can you tell by what we're looking at this moment? At this moment right now, can you tell who's under the Scooby-Doo blanket?
No, sir.
Can we go to 241 and pause? It looks like a woman who you can't see the top of her head, but you can see like her chin and her bottom lip has a black jacket. And right in between those, the law enforcement and the woman, you can see that someone's laying on the ground, and you see 3 people attending to them. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell by what we're looking at right now? Can you say exactly who that is?
100% confident because I'm in that photo.
And is that you standing over the front of them?
I'm standing over my son.
Or not standing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Kneeling in over the top of who's on the ground.
Yes, my son is crying because he just got struck by a vehicle and I'm trying to console him.
That wasn't the question. That's you kneeling over with the hat, and it looks like a grayish, I don't know if that would be a hoodie, but like looks like it's some like bluish black to the sleeve. Would that be you?
I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt. My son is wearing the blue jacket.
I could be mixed up. I apologize for that. So it would be safe to say, by what you just said, you were 100%. You were adamant, 100% that you knew who that was. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't have that same enthusiasm for everybody else that we were just looking at. Would that be fair to say?
Objection. This characterizes this witness's testimony.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Your 9-year-old was in your right hand, and your 3-year-old was in your left hand. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
You stated at some point that your 9-year-old was ripped, or you didn't know if your 9-year-old was ripped out of your hand. Can you explain what do you mean by ripped?
At the point where I lost contact with him is about the point where the vehicle had come through, so I didn't know if it was the force of the vehicle taking him away from me that forced our hands to be separated, or if we had just separated hands prior to that. But based on my recollection, it was simultaneously as the vehicle had passed through us.
And was that 9-year-old injured?
Yeah, Elliot was thrown in the air and he was knocked unconscious.
And what happened with your 3-year-old that was in your left hand?
I threw him with my left hand towards the curb.
When you say threw him, what do you mean by that?
I was holding on to it. I'm sorry.
A quick toss, or was it like a harsh push, or define thrown?
I picked him. I was holding on to him with my left hand. I grabbed him off the air and threw him as far as I possibly could because I knew that he was going to get hit by a car.
Do you recall if he was hurt in the throw?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Overruled. He may answer.
I didn't actually see him that night because I stayed with my other son at the hospital.
You made a reference to the speed. How did you come to that estimation of speed? Do you have any expertise in speed analysis in any way?
No, just my experiences driving as a motorist and being in law enforcement for 15 years, estimating vehicle speeds.
So it would be fair to say you don't know for sure?
That's correct.
And you already stated that your 9-year-old son did get struck. Did you actually see that?
I did not see him get thrown in the air, no.
Even though you had him in your right arm, or right hand rather?
Correct.
Do you recall stating to the officer that you were interviewed by that you saw a second unconscious person laying on the ground that you further described as a Hispanic female?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that in your testimony here today you gave names? That'd be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Why not in the summary of your report did you give names and just say a Hispanic female?
I'm just going to object to the form of the question. He's indicating that it's Detective Hallmark's summary in this report. It's not been established. Okay.
It's in the form of the question.
I was referring to him already testifying that he had knowledge of everybody that was in his group.
Rephrase your question, please.
At the time of your summary, did you know the identity of the Hispanic female that you referenced?
An objection to the form of the question. It's not his summary
Ground.
per se.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
So should I say in the summary that you gave? Do you recall that comment?
Objection mischaracterizes the summary.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question, please rephrase.
In the summary that was given by the officer that you gave the report to, Do you recall that
Yes.
statement?
I'm sorry.
I am going to object. The witness has answered the question. Again, I would just indicate for the record that I believe what Mr. Brooks is looking at is a different officer's report that summarizes the statement that that officer received from Detective Hallmark. With that understanding that that's what it is, I would ask Mr. Brooks to maybe ask his next question with keeping that in mind.
Objection to being called that. I don't identify by that name nor consent to being called that name. And I
Next
made
question,
reference-
sir.
I made reference that it was
Next
by
question.
another officer.
Next question, please.
And who is Charles
That'd be my 3-year-old.
and Benjamin?
That'd be my 7-year-old.
Do you recall what happened with Benjamin when you saw the vehicle approaching?
Yeah, he was run over by the vehicle on his left leg.
Do you at any time recall making a statement in the summary that was given by another officer? Do you recall making the statement, you threw Charles and Benjamin as hard as you could towards the south curb?
Yes, sir.
If you already stated that you threw your 3-year-old, which you just said was Charles, and you also just acknowledged that you threw Benjamin.
Objection as to the characterization. He acknowledged that the summary that Mr. Brooks is reading said that he threw Benjamin.
He answered the question.
He did not. I believe there's an objection. I'll sustain it as to the form of the question. Please rephrase.
So did you throw Benjamin as hard as you could to the south curb, or did you see Benjamin struck by the vehicle?
So when the vehicle was coming and I threw Charlie, I knew that Ben was in front of us, so it was the same motion with my left arm to get Benjamin and Charlie out of the way. Obviously, I didn't get Benjamin completely out of the way of the vehicle.
Any idea why that was not in the summary?
I don't recall.
Grounds?
He answered it. He said, I don't know. His answer may stand.
No further questions.
Any redirect?
Real brief. Sir, the identifications that you made in the exhibits that were shown to you on direct examination, are you 100% confident in those identifications?
Objection.
ma'am.
Hearsay.
Sorry.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
What is that based on?
My recollection of the incident.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down. To share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by telephone, blog post, email, text message, instant message, social media post, or in any other way on or off the computer. I just have a couple of housekeeping matters. Please be seated. I asked the Sheriff's Department to provide me with a report regarding the incident with Mr. Brooks and being removed from the courtroom. And I believe he may have even filed like a use of force form or something like that. But I wanted to have it notated or noted in the record. And so that incident report has been filed. Then, just as a courtesy, even though I'm not required to do this, sir, I did follow up on your inmate communication form with our clerk of court, Monica Paz. She has, I have the response here, and I'm going to provide that for you.
I accept the value in return for value these filings, and just very briefly so we can get out of here. I have to raise this issue.
What issue is
My understanding, how can someone who's not an injured party testify on behalf of somebody who is an injured party?
Mr. Brooks,
And it still be
I'm not
charged?
addressing this. It is a frivolous argument. You have a misunderstanding of the law. We are in recess. I am leaving the bench. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. We're in recess.
So that's a tacit agreement. We're not